Hey, midlife badass listeners. Today's episode is a little bit different. Today, we're going to be talking about death, not to be morbid, but because it's an important conversation that we all need to have. As we reach a certain age, we have loved ones that we are going to lose. It's inevitable. And we may fall into the caregiver role, and it's pretty likely that we will. So, my guest today, Abigail D'Agostino, has been in the role of caregiver from a nursing perspective, both in palliative care and in hospice. And she has a really important message and has written an extremely helpful book. It's a handbook for caregivers. It's called Everybody's Doing It, So Let's Die Better. And it's a really important book. She has a great message with a little dose of humor because I feel that humor is really important when we're dealing with life and death. So please enjoy this episode today. And if it resonates with you, take it to heart and put it into action. So without further ado, here we go. You're listening to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, the no BS podcast for women over 40 who are sick of playing by someone else's rules. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, badass midlife strategist, truth teller, and professional fire starter for midlife reinvention. Around here, we don't do fluff. We do real talk, bold strategies, and badass breakthroughs. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's your damn power move. If you're all in, unapologetic, and ready to reinvent, let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. And today we have a really special guest on, and I'm pretty sure that, women of our generation end up in a caregiver role at some point. If you're not there already, you probably will be, because we have aging parents, we have friends, we have everything. And, we're at a point in our lives when these things happen. My guest today is Abigail D'Agostino. She is a seasoned hospice and palliative care nurse with over 2 decades of medical experience navigating the messy, meaningful, and often misunderstood world of dying. And I think that right there, misunderstood, is a huge piece of it. She's also the author of a new bestseller called Everybody's Doing It, So Let's Die Better. It's a 31-day companion for caregivers facing the final chapter of their loved ones. So this is a really important book, and I know that this is kind of a heavy topic, but her real superpower is making the taboo of death feel a little less terrifying, even sometimes even a little humorous. And I am definitely one to throw a little humor into everything. So, Abigail, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and happy to spend time with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is a heavy topic, right?
Yeah.
we were talking before we got on here about, I recently lost my dog. And that was pretty devastating for me. And I've also lost my mom a few years ago, and we had an interesting relationship. We were, it was an interesting relationship. And in your book, there was, you talked about one of your patients who had a strained relationship with her mom, and then her mom had dementia, and all of a sudden she, my mom did not have dementia, but still, I mean, it's interesting how then she was not only grieving the lost relationship with her mother, and now she was, So anyway, it's complicated. Everything about this is complicated, and it is stressful and challenging. And the thing that I loved about your book is that, knowledge and planning can go a long way. And the other thing, even though your book was written for caregivers, I said, I think that it's a good guidebook for individuals who will eventually be the person who is being cared for as part of your, your life plan. Like, what do you do? Are your instructions clear for the people that will be your caregivers and so forth? So having all those conversations. All right, I'm just going to shut up for a sec, and I want
But
you
you
to
say it so well.
right. Well, I thought it was a really interesting book, and it's a brave topic to take on, especially to take on with humor.
Mhm.
But like you said, you've been in the field for such a long time.
Mhm.
Just I'd like to know a little bit more about you and tell me about your background that got you to this point.
I think the whole death thing was kind of always interesting to me. I just remember being a little kid and at night thinking about what happens after we're dead, and then
Mm.
thinking, so we just kind of go on forever, forever, whatever it is. I just remember just being thinking about it. And then I didn't have, when I was maybe 7 years old, I was in the ocean, swimming in the ocean. I didn't have a near death experience, but it was maybe near death experience adjacent, kind of. So I remember being trapped under a wave, and then things started to slow down, like really just slow down. But then something pulled me up, and I came back up. So, and I did, that kind of talk about NDEs and all of that, and what happens to those, and what it can kind of look like for everybody. But I just always felt like it leveled the playing field, unlike any other thing on this planet. And it made us the most human. So while we're so different and special because we're all different and own our own individual way, we
Mhm.
bring something to the table. I mean, you did things like stand-up comedy, which bravo to you. You also flew. You have your
Mhm.
pilot's license, right?
Mm.
So you do all these amazing things. Now you're doing all this amazing stuff for badass women. And if I was in California, I'd be going to your Paso Robles thing, by the way. Um, oh my gosh, one day we'll be moving back in a couple years. But anyway,
Yay.
I just love this whole topic. And so, but the big thing was, is I went into nursing, and then I spent my initial several years in working in critical care and ICU, working with the sickest of the sick, with all the
Mm.
tubes and everything. And I saw
Yeah.
over and over and over people just doing things that just made their loved ones suffer more, and they ended up suffering more. And nobody talked about this stuff when they were clearly dying, and they were doing all these things that just really weren't congruent with what that person needed at end of life. And I talk about in
Mm.
the book how we need to just change our goals. It doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop all the care. Rather, you're just changing your goals, and you're really making the treatment plan specific to the needs of that person. And not just the person, but also the family. And then I went into hospice and palliative care because I saw no other option. I just loved it. And so I wrote the book because I have those 2 decades of experience, and there's just so much. And in that 15 years of hospice and palliative care, I saw over and over people making the same situations and experiences that could just be a lot easier. And the main takeaway I think we need to take away from this is that we have agency over our own death and the death of our loved ones. We have some agency. It's something that is overwhelming. It's something that is really scary. It's so many things, but we do have agency over how we're going to die. So that's important. The other reason I wrote this book, other than just wanting to get something together for people to hopefully help them and make it in kind of a 31-day format, is because after towards the end of my 20 years, my 2 decades, I got really, really sick.
Mm.
And I ended up having to take a year off work. And it was because I worked like an animal. I just saw no other way. And I mean, even my boss said I work the jobs of 3 people plus some. And so I ended up getting very, very sick and having severe burnout, hospitalized and everything, and now on
Wow.
12 medications, early menopause, which, it's definitely part of
Congratulations.
it's, yeah,
Yay.
congratulations. And just
Woohoo.
added another hormone. But anyway, all of that, I wanted something more to come out of my sickness other than just what ended up happening. So I wanted something more, and I wanted something that could be used for people and used on this planet. So that's the other reason why I wrote this book. I wanted something more other than just, you know, leaving my role as director, which we did because we moved to Germany. I wanted something more. So that was another just kind of personal reason that I share.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also yes, like you said, you literally almost worked yourself to death. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not just the hours, and the medical field is demanding as it is. You've also got that, and I know just from being a coach, which is not the same thing, but when you're holding space for people, especially people that are in the role of the caregivers, and you're also holding space for the person that is ill and dying and actively dying, most of the time. Uh, that's a lot, and it really does. I mean, I'm very big into energy and all of that, and
Mhm.
if you can't preserve your own energy, you you are depleted and you have nothing else to give. So, yes, I'm sorry that you got to that point, and,
Mhm.
but I love that you have taken all of that experience and all of your stories and everything and put them into this book, because I found the book to be very helpful.
Good.
Um, I'm not a caregiver, but I know people who are, and I know people that are going through this, and I think it's very well written, and I love that it's like a handbook, right? That gives people actionable steps to take based on real scenarios and real stories, and like you said, um, being in the ICU and being around all of those things where it's just like, like you said in the book too, you watch these hospital shows, and people are coding, and
Mhm.
and you're, and it is what it is, but so many people that, will just go to the ER or go have that hospital experience when that's not the best option for them at that point in their life.
Mhm.
So, the one distinction that I loved in the book that I want to know more about and that I would love for you to share is the difference between hospice and palliative care, because I a lot of people don't understand the difference between those. Like, and a lot of times they're interchanged, and I loved your analogy in there, and I'm gonna let you use it with the coffee and espresso and all that good stuff, but, uh yeah, I love that piece of it. It was great. Uh, so tell me a little bit about, what's the difference? What is each one, and why are they different?
Sure. So, hospice, I'll start with hospice because it's usually the easiest one, maybe.
Mhm,
Hospice is medical care and it's professional medical care. So it's not
mhm,
just woo woo crystals, rainbows, and people coming in and doing this stuff to you. No, it's professional medical care paid for by the Medicare hospice benefit and or other insurance companies. So it's legit professional medical care where you have several medical professionals, including physicians, nurses, chaplains, or spiritual care counselors are the other names, social workers, counselors, nursing aides. You have so much, including other types of modalities, other, alternative, integrative healing, all these kinds of things. And the thing that's really special about hospice, other than that it's strict, that it is professional medical care, is it's very holistic. It's one of the medical providers and specialties that is very holistic in nature, in that it doesn't just address the patient as a physical person, because,
mhm,
we're not just physical, right? We've got this stuff up here, we've got our energy, spiritual, whatever it is that you believe, whatever it is that resonates with you. You have all these other components to you outside of the physical, right? So the
mm,
care is just very holistic, addressing all the parts of the person. And the other thing that makes it really special is it's patient driven. So meaning that the patient and their unit of care, their loved ones, whoever that may be, blood relatives or not, they are really deciding on where they want the care to go, what they want it to look like, down to the what I want to be sipping on as I'm declining, whatever it is. So, but to be very simplistic, it's terminal care, end of life care for the last 6 months of your life. And yes, the other people questions that people have is, well, can it be longer than that? Can it be shorter? Yes, because we don't have a crystal ball. At least I haven't found one that exactly works. But through medical judgment, you can determine how long about somebody will live. But then there's always surprises. So generally, the according to regulation, it's 6 months. Okay, so you got 6 months or less to live, you get hospice care. It's terminal end of life care. Palliative care, while palliative care, as you said very correctly, so that people mix those terms all the time. palliative care and hospice, but they're different. Palliative care should be thought of as just another specialty. So you know how I go to my gynecologist to get all my HRT. I go to my endocrinologist also to get my thyroid stuff. I go to a cardiologist. I go to whatever. We go to an oncologist. So those ologists, same thing for palliative care. But their specialty, the specialty of a palliative provider, is comfort and really managing symptoms. So it could be managing symptoms from whatever condition or disease someone has, but it's managing symptoms. And the great thing about palliative care, especially in the States right now, is it's really advanced. And it does also do kind of a holistic looking at all the aspects of the person, what they want. When you have palliative care too, they do what's called advanced care planning, which is really cool because it says, okay, right now you have this thing going on with you. As the thing starts to change its course, as things start to look different, what are we going to do? And they really start that end of life planning process. It's so valuable. So the thing with palliative care is you can have it even before you're terminal. The best practice is once you're diagnosed with a serious illness and or chronic illness, and those terms can also be defined too. I can talk about that, but is really when you should have palliative care. Because like I said in the book, if someone who has a diagnosis of cancer, as you may know, and as some people know, is when you start treatment, you have side effects with the treatment. So palliative care is a beautiful adjunct to really make sure that that person is really comfortable as they're experiencing all their care. So what a lot of times what we say in hospice and palliative care is we say all hospice care is palliative because we focus on comfort, right? But it's for terminal. But not all palliative care is hospice, right? Because it's not palliative care is not necessarily end of life care, but it is its own specialty. So just like all espresso is coffee, but not all coffee is espresso.
Right.
Yeah. Just because I was a coffee addict for so long.
Yeah, I imagine that you were. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously.
Coffee and donuts, but that has definitely, thank you. That was my little, yes. Is that clear? Or if I need to clarify anything, please let me know.
No, I got it. Hospice is you are at the end of your life. And I can see where palliative care also is woven into hospice because
yes, perfect.
Even as you're declining, you still may be experiencing physical symptoms that can be treated by palliative care. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I also, when you speak to hospice specifically, there's that, what's the word I'm looking for? People think that, oh, you're going to go into hospice. That's it. You're giving up. And that's the kind of, that's what it is. Hospice is not that.
No, it's not. Definitely not. No, what you're doing is you're refocusing and redirecting your goals for your care. So just like you wouldn't go to a hairdresser to address your
gallbladder?
Yeah, your gallbladder. Exactly. I mean, yes, it might make you feel good, but you wouldn't go to your hairdresser to do that. You would go to the right person. You go to the right person. And people, unfortunately, they do. They just think it's giving up. They're letting the patient or the person just die in bed and you're not doing anything. And it's far more than that. And it's so important. This is why, too, my previous boss used to say nobody should die without hospice because hospice is medical care for those who are dying. So you're not going to go down the road of the step that you always did, like going to the emergency room, like continuing chemotherapy that now has stopped working, like continuing blood transfusions that have stopped working and have caused other issues, et cetera, et cetera. You're redirecting your care. You're not giving up. You're redirecting your care and you're actually providing the care that is really needed for this stage. Yes, and you happen to die, but your body is dying anyway. So you need the right specialized medical care for that part.
To make it as comfortable and as natural as possible is what I would think of it as. And rather than, like you said, getting some treatment that is not going to make a difference anymore and, doing something unnecessary. Like, for example, okay, this is similar but different. When my dog passed last week and I took him in, he had a hemangiosarcoma burst in and near his heart. They pulled off like 50 milliliters of fluid and blood from his heart because it was being crushed by the fluid. But they also said that it was not, the prognosis was that it's incurable, right? So sure, they said you can go through chemo, you can do all this stuff, and he's still going to die, A, and B, what is his quality of life going to be? That was my question. And, the thought of taking a poor dog who is already anxiety ridden multiple times to the vet to get chemo, it's like I couldn't, do that. So I think that it's, I had to make that decision. Whereas, making those decisions or having those decisions predetermined when you're in that situation as the patient and or the caregiver, and having those conversations early.
Yeah, that's critical. So you said some really, you mentioned some really good points here. Especially when we talk about the type of care that hospice is, and I mentioned this too, my previous medical director said something really brilliant, because even in the hospital, regardless of what level I was working, I would still hear providers, including physicians, nurses, whoever it was, still say, we're going to stop all aggressive treatment and go on hospice. And that needs to be clarified. I've seen that happen too much. And that's why people think, oh, we just give up. Hospice is still aggressive treatment. We're aggressively treating the symptoms. We're aggressively treating anything and everything that is impacting the patient's not only comfort, but their quality of life and their dignity of their life. Right. So even down to their personal care, right? Which is why you have all these people, their existential and spiritual distress, for example, with these other types of, counselors that we have. So hospice care is in fact aggressive care. What it's not curative care. Right. So curative care is when you're trying to cure and you're trying to fix that disease, wrap it all up, and then you go on as new. This is different. Benny wasn't going to be cured. Right.
No.
So we knew Benny and where he was, his little body was dying at this point. So,
yes.
And as tough as it was, and it seemed like you went through several things here, but when you were making this decision, you said that, just for you to have him around for another couple months, even if that, you were really clear with yourself, that you're not making this decision just for you, right? Just to have him around. But really for him, what he needed was a different approach to his care and different decisions to be made. Right. So, what you did, again, that was a really tough decision. But I'm so glad that you were able to be with him. You got him comfy enough to be able to be with him.
Yeah, they were able to stabilize him, and I got to spend time with him, and it was
you got to spend time with him.
It was
at the
beautiful.
Very last moments. Yeah, be there. Because you're his family. You're his leader, his main family. And what hospice does too, which is something that I don't think many people think about, is allow for the natural progression of the disease to occur. So while in curative care, we're trying to stop it, we're trying to cure it, reverse it, and bring the person back to quote normal. None of us are normal, by the way. So,
oh, come on, burst my bubble.
Okay, I'll let you keep the illusion. But anyway.
All right, good. Thank you.
But allowing for the natural progression of this condition to occur. And so, allowing for it to happen, allowing for whatever it is, that organ failure to happen, all this other stuff to happen, but being able to aggressively manage any of the symptoms, any of the things that pop up. And things pop up at end of life that you don't see anywhere else. You have these terminal agitation, terminal pain, all these types of things, terminal hyperthermia, which is, a very unusual increase, very high increase in temperature. So you have all these things that happen at end of life that don't happen on day to day, So, you really need that expertise, but allowing for the natural progression is just a very compassionate way, especially at this stage of life, for things to occur. And so that's why, again, and that's, yes, one of the other big points here is to ensure that you have palliative hospice care at end of life. Yeah.
Yeah. you've talked about it as we've been having this conversation, but has like when you were in intensive care, right? And you're taking care of, you're actively trying to keep people alive for the most part, right? A lot of times, like, that's kind of like people come into the ER and then they're in the ICU or whatever happens. How did and I'm assuming they did, how did your views of death change over time? And was there anything at any one point that flipped that switch for you that, okay, and shifted you from intensive care to working in hospice? Did that question make sense?
Definitely. Yeah, you said it
Yeah.
beautifully. I think there's so many because you saw over and over. And I remember getting us nurses doing this thing where, oh, we have Mr. So and so. Yeah, the family just keeps wanting to do this and this. Nobody's talking to them.
Mhm.
Da 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 da. We had those talks over and over.
Yeah.
And I had several opportunities where I dealt with really sick people and was allowed to, guide them through that death process. They didn't get on hospice, but they finally, were at the very end stage. But one moment that was it was like this crucible moment for me. And you hear about it in nursing school. I heard about it in nursing school where, when you do CPR, you might break people's ribs.
Mhm.
And I remember this one morning and I was getting ready for a patient and you have this nurse's thing as well as just, having information in front of you, but just all this thing in your body that's going, something's going to happen. So I had the crash cart, which is just the emergency cart, everything ready. And she coded, which basically
Mhm.
her heart stopped. She stopped breathing on her own, but her heart stopped. And so I remember I remember calling the code, pressing the button, everyone's running, and I jump on the bed. My knees are next to her chest, and I start doing chest compressions. And then I started to feel the pop. Now, this
Mhm.
woman was tiny. She was 90 some pounds. That's like size of my right leg, maybe. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm doing this because I have to. The family was set on this. And we've even talked to the family at this point too. But I remember doing chest compressions on her,
Mhm.
breaking her ribs. And I just thought this is so barbaric because she was trying to die for so long. And she died the next day.
Mhm.
We went
Yeah.
through all of that. We pumped her with stuff. We did all this stuff with her ventilator. We added several more drips, all this kind of stuff, pumping on her chest for, even a few minutes. It's like, can you imagine just that?
No.
And
Yeah.
then, and then all of this for about 23 hours more of life hooked up to tubes, not being able to do anything, having tubes come out of you, out of your bladder, out of your mouth, everything, just for you to be on this earth for 23 more hours with all the noise of the ICU, people coming in and out.
Yeah.
And you already dead. And that's what people need to understand is when you start CPR, you're already clinically dead. Your
Mm.
body has already died. And, and people will say, and people, that's where the TV shows are a little misleading because they do this.
Yeah.
And then, some hotshot doctor walks in and says, do this, they do
Yeah.
this. And then the person wakes up, it's very unrealistic. But
Right.
the survival, you have to think about what is this person? What is a life going to look like? And in detail, what will
Mhm.
the life look like of this person, of your loved one, as they come out of CPR,
Yeah. Well,
based
and
on
I
their
think you
conditions, their age, everything? Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and you talked about that
Hmm.
in the book. It's like, is this a
Hmm.
young, healthy person that just had an
Hmm.
incident that,
Yeah.
or is it someone who, is terminally ill? And I think that's a good advertisement for, if you don't wanna be resuscitated, get that DNR in place and,
Hmm.
abide by that, please. I mean, they
Hmm.
even asked me, "Do you want us to resuscitate Benny?" And I'm like, he's like a 15-pound dog. What are you gonna do? And for what? Come on."
No,
So,
and
yeah,
this is
I get
why
it.
too, with animals, it's hard for them to understand, obviously. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad you took that into account, which you did that so naturally. It's so beautiful. But this is why too, when I do want to just bring up people with dementia or cognitive conditions. This is
Yeah.
why, at end of life, this is all in the context of end of life. I want to be clear. And again, this is, none of this is medical advice. You have to always seek, you know, the medical
Right.
advice from your provider. But sending them to the ER at end of life or doing these types of curative treatments, they're not going to understand. So whatever kind of cognitive condition somebody has and or dementia, where short-term memory is really impacted, all these things, it's very hard for them to understand. And so the anxiety,
It would be
the fear
scary and jarring, I would imagine, just, like,
for them.
frightening, like, "Why are you doing this to me? I don't even understand." Like you said,
So,
their cognitive function is deteriorated, and so it's like, "What?
yeah,
Why are you
it's
Yeah,
inhumane. And then this is, of course, my
yeah,
opinion, but what
right.
how I've seen it, it's just, it is inhumane. And
Yeah.
the terror that you see in people's eyes when this happens, when they haven't been eating and the family insists on putting a tube through the nose to go into the stomach.
Mhm,
So this is why I say, then come in and watch us do it.
mhm.
Watch how your loved one fights when that tube is going down, because it's extremely uncomfortable,
Yeah,
and watch that, because is this something you would want for someone that you love and or yourself? So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a heavy
Oh,
subject.
that's good. Okay, for those of you who are still here, uh oi,
Definitely.
oi, oi, oi. So the purpose of your book, and I love this, is that so that you don't have those scary moments like you just described,
Mhm.
where your loved one is whisked off to the ER once again to do something that is just going to torture them perhaps, or,
Mhm.
create some sort of chaos in their mind and in their psyche and in their energy, uh, to you know, no, positive end, right? Other
Right.
than, okay,
Mhm.
bring them back home again or whatever, or maybe they stay in the hospital. Anyway, so in your book, uh, I love the structure of it because it is, 31 days of every day there's an activity that you can do to help figure things out.
Mhm.
And at what point, I mean, I think that, if you have an ailing relative or an older relative that at some point is going to end up needing care, like at what point do you read this book? And at what point do
It
you go through these
mm.
steps to
It
understand better?
yeah, for sure. Uh, I just say, if you have loved ones in your life, it's a good time to read it before the
Mm.
yogurt hits the spinning fan,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
or pudding, whatever it is. Because you make decisions better, obviously, when we're not in the midst of an emotional roller coaster and not
Right.
being overwhelmed. Because and this is why we talk about doing things like rehearsing, doing your little mock test, all that kind of stuff, because when it happens, your nervous system is going to go crazy. But if
Mhm.
you can start to prepare yourself, if you can start doing your little rehearsals, these little things that I have in the book, then you're going to prepare yourself. You're going to know it's going to feel like a lot, but you've already kind of trained and familiarized your nervous system just a little bit so that you're
Mhm.
going to feel more empowered. And then you've also thought about these things ahead of time. And not only that, hopefully you've had that conversation. So basically, if you have a loved one in your life, you're going to be I use the term caregiver, and it's just an umbrella term for someone who loves somebody who's going to get sick and die and or die one day. So yeah, I would say at any time, between now and whatever, because it's better just to read it without the pressure. It's always better to
Yeah.
learn without the pressure of it looming over you, because then you have a clearer head, hopefully, most likely, and you're a little
Yeah.
calmer about it, and you can really think things through.
Yeah, and I just like I said, and I shared this with you beforehand, is that
Mhm.
I thought, as a single person and I have no kids and all of that, somebody's gonna have to look after my sorry ass at some point, right?
Yeah.
And help me make those decisions if I haven't already made them. And it's like every time I talk about this, I'm like, "Oh shit, I gotta get those things in place," because
Right. You get the
because
ooh.
like I said, these dogs are not gonna be real helpful. Uh, but so I thought it was also, like I said, and I mentioned this before, is that for ourselves, if we're at a
Mhm.
certain age, well, we know shit's gonna go sideways, but we just don't know when. And
Yeah.
why burden your caregivers
Mhm.
with, so I think it's also good for individuals to read, to understand that in some at some point we are going to be the people that need the care. So
Mhm.
why not do this? And then we can have those conversations with people that we think, and get those directives in place and have people so that, like you said, they're not making these decisions under duress and they're making, because it's hard you know, when you have to make those decisions and you're wrestling with what is right and what you feel in your
Mhm.
heart and what your emotions are telling you because they're pulling you in one direction and your logic is pulling you in another direction, and it just is awful. It's awful because you don't wanna make the wrong decision, then you're like, "But what is the right so all these things. So,
Right.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
Let's give ourselves the credit that we do have more power than we actually do.
Uh,
We
uh-huh,
really do. I mean, this is something we know for sure is gonna happen. I don't think
uh-huh.
anyone's escaped it yet. And but it's so funny how it is a taboo subject. I was doing a live stream a couple weeks ago, and the person who was introducing me said, yeah, so, about someone, maybe your loved one who has maybe died, or I should say pass away. And, even that, to say pass away, we do it because we need to kind of soften the blow, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because we are just, we don't like it, but there's a reason why we don't like it and we avoid it, because our brain just is naturally designed for our survival. So,
Uh-huh.
if you're afraid of death, good, you're healthy. And
Mhm.
people ask me all the time, "Are you afraid?" After seeing all these deaths and everything, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I'm a lot less afraid, but I know my body's still afraid,
Yeah,
right?
interesting.
Because our body, our nervous systems, what are we driven to do every day? Get up,
Survive.
eat,
Yeah.
drink. If we see something coming from the side like this, like
We get out of the
I don't know,
way.
a woolly mammoth, for example,
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna
I
run
had
the
one of
other
those.
way. Yeah.
You're right.
I'm gonna take my loincloth and I'm gonna run the other way. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We naturally have this built in because we're designed to survive. So
Mhm.
as evolved as we all claim to be, at this century, in La La Land. Yes, we've definitely evolved, but we're still in this body that is designed for survival. It's designed to
Mhm.
reproduce, right? It's designed to eat and drink every several hours or more, depending on how stressful a day that you have. It's
Right.
designed to rest, to recoup, so all that, so that we don't die. So it's just dying to live all the time. That's what
Mhm.
we're doing:
Yeah.
survive and live and procreate. And so it's natural to be afraid of death. And so if you're afraid, then you're healthy and you're
Mhm.
normal. It's okay. It's a very natural thing. But what I hope to do with this book and with my content is to assuage that fear a little bit, because the more we know, the more we expose ourselves, the more that we have the conversations, even though, yes, we're uncomfortable with it,
Mhm.
it can start to feel a little less overwhelming. I'm not
Yeah.
promising to rid your fear completely, because that's unrealistic in the body that we're designed to have. But,
Mhm.
watching amazing deaths and watching great deaths, it's certainly helped me feel less fearful of it. But yes, in all transparency, my body is, sure, it's still afraid of dying, of course, because that's
Yeah.
what it's designed to do.
Yeah, and I remember in the book you had this one, I think her name was Laney, was it?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, where, like you said, she was like everybody's favorite, and she was
Mhm.
just and but she was in hospice.
Mhm.
She knew she was going but yet she because of the care, this is what I took
Mhm.
away from it, because of the care that she was getting, that she was at ease. She
Mhm.
was, happy-ish, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? That she
Mhm.
was content knowing that she was, A, being taken care of, and
Mhm.
that, whether she had fear around dying or not, but that, you know, she was in the best place she could possibly be, and her quality of
Mm.
life reflected, her being reflected how she was feeling. Does that make sense?
Right. It
And I
definitely
thought it
does,
was a
and just
really beautiful example of just that if we can have those conversations
Mhm.
and if we can have a better understanding and have more education, like the body is going to go through these things whether you like it or not.
Right.
And And if you understand that, you can say, "Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, this is that stage. This is that thing that was gonna happen. This is whatever." That maybe, just maybe, it can have that last chapter be, one that's palatable.
hmm And the one thing that's really special, I think, and I'm glad you took that away from Laney's story. And of course, I changed the names for privacy and
Yeah.
anonymity, but um, she was doing so well on hospice. And in my
Mhm.
position, that was freaking me out because she wasn't showing decline in the typical way. And in my job, I had to make sure that you have to constantly justify to Medicare or whoever's paying for hospice why that person's appropriate. And this is such a good example because she was doing well for a good several months, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But then that one morning I was going to report, and she took a turn. She
Mhm.
declined very quickly overnight. And so what was amazing though is rather than her family panicking and calling 911, they learned what we taught them, and they knew that we had to call hospice first. Of course, this is talk to your medical provider. They called hospice first. We were able to send a nurse out there at night. We got,
Mhm.
a bunch of medications started. She had some other meds already there at the home, so they were able to give her something to keep her comfortable. We got some other medications started. We got a nursing aide out there. Our nurse was able to manage the symptoms very quickly. And her family, we had all of the final arrangements were already taken care of, so the family could just be the family, that the caregivers could just be their family there.
Yeah.
And what we saved that family was huge, because if
Mhm.
not, they would have called 911. They would have come to the door. They would have moved this woman who's dying on an uncomfortable stretcher, threw her in the ER where it was cold and
Yeah.
noisy and just chaotic. And then the family would have had to come in anyway at that late time of night and try to make decisions and figure all that stuff out
Yeah.
while they're, you know, it's a completely different experience when
Yeah.
you're prepared. And this is why too I said, hospice is usually referred too late. And the work, you can do so much work, and when you have that time before the chaos hits. So
Yeah.
so I just wanted to mention that about her, because
Yeah.
you brought that up. So yeah, she
Yeah, I
was it
just
all.
Yeah, I know, I love that, and I love that her family respected all of that,
Mhm.
and I think I think sometimes families go against the person's wishes, and I think that's really
Mhm.
hard because, if you go to all the trouble to lay out your wishes and say, "This
Mhm.
is what I want my end of life care to look like," and then it's not respected, yeah, I think that's hard, and that's really,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen examples of that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and why are they doing it? It's really for
right,
their comfort, maybe some other
right,
motives, but
exactly.
it's usually for their comfort, and
Yeah.
that's where again, you really want to ideally have, learn about this, talk about it before all that stuff happens.
Have those hard conversations,
Mhm.
whether you
Yeah.
want to or not, whether you're the person and you're informing your family or whether you're the family
Mhm.
member. And I think it's
Mhm.
hard sometimes because the patient, you know, like you said, we get in survival mode as a
Mhm.
patient and like, "Ah, la, 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 I don't wanna talk
Mhm.
about this," and it's like, "No, we need to talk about it," "I don't know what your wishes are," and yeah,
Mhm.
it's icky conversation, nobody wants to have this. So, if
Yeah.
you're listening to this podcast and you have a tough conversation to have.
Yeah. And you take it and hopefully, we do it again before the crisis hits, but and
Yeah.
you just acknowledge it's an uncomfortable conversation. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. I don't like it
Mhm.
because I fear death. We all fear death. Well, good. We're all in the same boat, you guys. We're all in the
Right?
same boat. We're all
Everybody's doing
experienced.
it.
Yeah, everybody's doing it exactly. So yeah, I mean that this is, if anything, it should bring us more together because we're sharing in all this fear. It's uncomfortable, sure, it's
Yeah,
uncomfortable,
yeah.
but we have a choice because like you said, it is happening for sure, guaranteed.
Mhm.
100% success rate for based on my professional experience, right?
Right.
And it's going to happen, and so but we can definitely make it better. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you feel that bringing a little humor to this topic, helps?
Uh, um,
And well, and the second part of
okay.
that question is, Are people resistant to humor when talking about death?
Yes.
Okay.
But
I'm just curious
they
because
are.
they might think like, "Oh, you're making fun of this really serious topic."
Mhm.
And I just wanna be clear that that is not in any way, shape, or form what we're doing here. It's very serious. It's a heavy topic.
Mhm.
I do believe in humor as something that helps us through life and can
Mhm.
also help us through death. So I'd love to hear your 2 cents on that.
Sure, and I agree with you. For me personally, I've always had a sense of humor about it because it is the most serious thing on this planet. I mean, my point of reference now, based on my experience, my point of reference is always death. Like, it is it is the thing that happens to us, and usually the thing that we think is the worst thing that happens to us. But I also see it. I've come to see it as another stage in our being. So that's
Mhm.
another conversation for another day, maybe. but that's how I personally see it. And yes, I use the humor a lot, just because the work itself was always so you're dealing with the most human aspects of ourselves,
Mhm.
you know, and you're also dealing with bodies that are changing, right? And they're changing, they're not working the way they're supposed to. They look different. Sometimes, parts of the bodies have to be removed. But that never should take away from the person that's housing that body, right? Even with
Mhm.
age, whatever it is. So what I loved about it most, what I love about death most, is because there is so much. It brings out our humanness. It always helped me remember the person inside that body, even
Yeah.
though that body looks different. It can't work like it can't go to the bathroom like it did, and that should never. For me, I learned that to never take away the person, what that person is inside of it, and that helped me a lot when I was really sick and fearing death myself. And the humor part is not to at all dismiss what that person is experiencing, not to dismiss the suffering, the pain, the grief, all of that, but to acknowledge those times where, yeah, sometimes our bodies make funny noises, funny things happen,
Mine does that right
smells.
now.
Let me
Not
tell,
right this
let me
second,
tell
but
you, like with menopause, I don't know what happened. I had to switch deodorant and everything. Anyway, it's all these great things that happen as we um, develop our superpowers, as you say. This is our superpowers thing. I love that. I just love that was so cool. That is so cool. So it's a key fact. It's a key part, I think. And
Mhm.
and to know that it's okay, that when you have the urge to laugh, it's okay. It's okay. And some people, not everyone's gonna vibe with you. It's okay. It's okay. Of course,
Yeah.
but we try to be sensitive when we need to be, but there is a place
Oh,
for humor for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not gonna come in and do a stand-up routine for,
No.
in the
No, no.
but I do think having a little bit of levity and
Mhm.
acceptance, it takes the edge off of those
Mhm.
difficult no matter what the difficult topic is, if it's death, if it's something else, if it's, and it's like you said, it's not to diminish it, it's not to
Mm-mm.
it's
Dismiss it now.
just dismiss it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just yeah.
It helps us move
So I
through
appre
those moments sometimes, and
yeah.
sometimes it's okay. Yeah, there's definitely a place for it for sure, just like you said. Yeah.
Well, and I've always laughed at myself because if I'm not, I can't take myself
Oh,
too
if you can't
seriously
laugh at
ever,
yourself,
right?
that
Hopefully, I
would just
keep
be
my
way too
sense of
hard.
humor when
I
my bodily functions are flying out the window, literally and figuratively. So,
Right.
jeez, Louise,
Yeah.
oh my god. Ooh. Well, I think thank you so much, first of all, for writing this book and taking on this
Yeah.
difficult topic and being willing to share these things. And, yes, I have your disclaimer here. This is not, and I will put this into the show notes and everything that,
Awesome.
always seek medical advice
Mhm.
and so forth. This is just it's a book to help people have a better understanding of the options and how to talk about them and how to help, your person that you love go through these
Mhm.
things and
Yeah.
how to help you also, regulate your nervous system and be the person that, it's kind of just like, put your oxygen mask on first so that
Mhm.
you can help someone else. So,
Yeah. Well said.
um, as we kind of wrap things up here,
Mhm.
what would you like to leave my listeners with? If you could leave them with one thing, what would you like to leave them with? Like, if you could put up a billboard about to caregivers everywhere, what would it be?
I think just like what I said at the beginning, there you have agency over this part of your
Mhm.
life. We don't have control over everything, but we do have some agency. And we can exercise that agency for a better experience, not just for your loved one who's dying, but for you too. And hopefully, you when you are doing the death thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And one more thing,
Mhm.
how can people get in touch with you,
Mhm.
and um what kind of services are you offering in terms of guidance or whatever it is, coaching that
Mhm.
around this topic? So how can people get in touch with you? How can they get your book? All of that good stuff.
Cool. I think probably the easiest thing to remember is if they just go to my website, diebetterbook.com. It's also tied with my other Nurse Abigail D website. So I have all the ways that you can get in touch with me there. Social media, you can write to me directly, all that kind of good stuff. Right now, I do have, if you want to set a meeting with me, I do have options for that. So you can do that. And I also do other things, done workshops and some speaking and stuff like that. So it's all those things. So you can just contact me directly and talk it through. Yeah, for sure.
I love
Yeah.
the topic of it. I love the title of the book, Die Better. Period. At
Cool.
the end.
Thank
Just
you.
die better.
Yeah. Because everybody's doing it. Yes.
Everybody's doing it. So die better
Yeah.
than the last person.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Abigail, again for being it has been a pleasure, and I know that this is a tough topic, and not
Mhm.
everybody's gonna love this episode, but I hope
Mhm.
that if you listen to it, if it resonates with you, or if it resonates with someone that you know, please, please share this, with them, because I think they may find it helpful, albeit maybe a little difficult.
Yeah.
But it it's definitely something that I think we need to, as a society, as caregivers, as soon to be people that are gonna need care, um, conversations that we need to have. So I applaud you for taking this topic on and sharing your, depth of experience, both in life and in death. So thank you
Thank you.
again for being on. Share this episode with a friend, like I said, and I will see you next week on Midlife Strategies for Badass Women.